Hey, so let's talk for a minute on the subject of personal growth. uh, I know quite a bit about personal growth because I spent a lot of my years striving to become better. I striving to become, you know, to what I call personal growth or personal development, or and there's nothing wrong with personal growth or personal development. But if you're an addict or an alcoholic, it will not save the day. So what do you want to do? You're an addict and an alcoholic, let's say. You want to quit drinking, right? I mean, that's the deal. You want to stop using. You want to quit blowing up your friggin' life, you know? Um, and so you come to the 12-step world and we say, well, look, you step one tells us that we have to stop running the show. Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna stop running the show. So we get involved, and somehow, we miss that the recovery process requires that we create a relationship with a higher power. So not a belief in a higher power, but a relationship with a higher power. So we have to kind of seek that higher power out, right? And surrender our lives and begin to let go of the things that have been blocking us off from that higher power, so that we start to realize who we are in relationship to that higher power. Now, Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, I mean, he's the one that kind of got us on the path. He said, look, um, for the real alcoholic and the real addict, there was no other way but a complete psychic change, a spiritual experience. So not personal growth, not incrementally changing our habits. Although none of that stuff is wrong or bad, it just won't save the day in tough going. Okay, that's all. I'm not making this up. This is not bullshit. I'm telling you that this is facts from my experience. 40 years in recovery, working with tons and tons of guys and men and women over the years. And it is safe to say that lots of people do come to the 12-step world who are not really alcoholic or addict, and so maybe they get away with it, and maybe you think that because they got away with it that you can. But if you're a real alcoholic or a real addict, and you know who you are, you know, total surrender. Nothing short of total surrender is will save the day. And it doesn't mean that you can't read personal growth books, or it's all good, but this spiritual path is the path. So in the big book, it says on page 60, being convinced, we're now at step three, which is we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood Him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? So here's the key. The first requirement, which is like the first step, right? So we must be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So if we're running the show, that's self-will. Okay, that's the deal. And why are we running the show? We're generally running the show because we're afraid. And we don't want to surrender because we don't have any real trust in life. We're full of fear. We're paralyzed by fear. So this first step is hard. It's like, okay. So, and often we're motivated by desperation. We're about to lose our family. We're about to lose our businesses, our life. Many of the people I know, of course, I know many people have died, didn't make it. But I know many who were on the verge of losing everything, and they said, okay, I surrender, I surrender. But it isn't easy, and so this is what we point out to people. The first requirement being convinced that any life on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people like to try to live by self-propulsion, right? So self-propulsion, self-will, right? And fundamentally, for the addict and the alcoholic, our problem lies in ourself. So self-improvement, though, we can't seem to be able to change ourselves, and many of us have tried. And so we need to focus on a spiritual solution and a relationship with a higher power. Now, this is easy stuff, really. Once we get past the old conditioned beliefs about what a higher power is. But first of all, we kind of have to be convinced that the problem was based in our thinking, right? and we can't correct it. It's like we're talking about a software with a virus that can't be removed. And the virus is called fear and self-will and self-centeredness and selfishness and self-centeredness, right? The selfishness, the self-centeredness that we think, page 62, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, right? Self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. So that was our problem. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic and the addict is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Such self-will that we think we can fix it ourselves. We're like, I can fix this. And we try and we tinker around with the software, but the virus is, the one that's trying to fix itself. So the mind, the eye cannot see the eye. And so I don't know how to make it any plainer than that. I really don't. So we need to find a power greater than ourselves. Many times we have to kind of really reevaluate that. We get some time on it, usually, as long as so we're working on this. It's not like it's, I mean, we often have what's called, spiritual experience of the educational variety. It happens over time. As long as we're spiritual students, we're working towards it. We're helping others. We're continuing to grow. It will work. Many of us have to let go of our old ideas, or Sunday school. I call them our Sunday school ideas of God, and to have this experience. But it can happen. I mean, it's happened for me. I'm no whiz kid. I just persisted and persisted and persisted because I knew that there was other people were free of fear. I knew the promises said that we would know peace. I wanted to be comfortable in my own skin. I wanted to know peace. I wanted to be free of fear. And I didn't just want to not drink and not use. I wanted to be free of fear. So become a spiritual student. I know it's really inviting to go to lots of self-help groups, self-improvement groups, and I don't have anything against them. I think they're just great. But recognize for the addict and the alcoholic that the answer lies in this relationship with a higher power. So I've been reading from this book for a while, and I'm going to read it again tonight. I've been trying to get it done every day, and just about every day I have. I think I'm on chapter... I'm on chapter 18. Wow, it's one paragraph. I love this book. This is called the Tao-te-ching. And Stephen Mitchell, it's Stephen Mitchell's interpretation of the Tao-te-ching. And it was a book written by I think like a Taoist monk called lao-tzu. Lao-tzu it stands for old man, I think, and it's really quite a long time ago, maybe before kind of this not a lot said about lao-tzu, but beautiful the words in this book. And if you're a spiritual student, this is the book for all of us. This really is, and consider yourself a spiritual student. So if you're in recovery as an addict or an alcoholic, you are a spiritual student, period, full stop. Going to the gym won't fix you. Going working your ass off 80 hours a week won't help. It may be good for a while, but when the going gets tough, we need to have this foundation, a working, a conscious relationship with this power greater than ourselves. So yeah, that's it. Just working, doing self-help doesn't cut the deal. I had a beautiful day today. Did fifth step with a young fellow. It was beautiful. I think we spent 4 or 5 hours on it. And then the fourth and fifth step in the recovery program help us to see the nature of how self-will operated in our lives. And how fear and resentment and selfishness operated in our lives. And so as we become aware of that, then two things can happen. One is we can begin to, as we see these things happen, to invite, call on this relationship to there's a prayer for in step 4 on resentments. There's a prayer in step 4 on also in fear. A beautiful little fear prayer. If you ever have fear, if you ever live with fear, You call it anxiety, whatever you want to call it. Live with fear. This little prayer is just so small, and it brings us right into the moment. And when we're here in this moment, fear runs away. You know, it really does. Prayer is, God, take away my fear. Show me what you'd have me to be. Everything in the 12 steps is guiding us towards helping others. Take away my fear. Show me what you'd have me to be. It's beautiful. And that's the practical of the spiritual experience. Anyway, here we go. Lao-tzu, chapter 18. When the great Tao is forgotten, goodness and piety appear. When the body's intelligence declines, cleverness and knowledge step forth. When there is no peace in the family, piety begins. F-I-L-I-A-L, piety begins. P-I-E-T-Y, piety begins. When the country falls into chaos, patriotism is born. Interesting, very short. The great Tao is forgotten. The great Tao to me is God. You know, the relationship with that. When the great Tao is forgotten, goodness and piety appear. When the body's intelligence declines, cleverness and knowledge step forth. When there's no peace in the family, filial, F-I-L-I-A-L, filial, and piety begins. When the country falls into chaos, patriotism is born. So he writes some notes on these in the back. I'm just going to have a look at that. Stephen Mitchell wrote a little note on each thing, each little chapter in the back. And sometimes the notes are even shorter. Well, they're often shorter than the chapter. Chapter 18, the great Tao, Gayatri said to Vasbunda, if you have nothing to ask for in your mind, that state of mind is called the Tao. If you have nothing to ask for in your mind, that state of mind is called the Tao. Goodness and piety appear. When the Tao is forgotten, people act according to rules, not from the heart. This goodness is as insecure as jobs and can be as self-satisfied as little Jack Horners. Whereas a good father has no intention of being good. He just acts naturally. So all of these writings are very thought-provoking. They're very, you know, it kind of, we drop into it. There's a peace around the words that I really love. So just a quick note, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. I love it if you subscribe to the channel. If you're not on YouTube, go to my YouTube channel and watch. I've done, you know, now this is number 18 of these. I intend to read them all. There's 81. I'm looking forward. There's some great stuff in here. But go to YouTube and maybe have a look at them, the ones that I've written. And yeah, I love you guys. And if you have any thoughts about what I just spoke, I'd love to see your notes and you know, say something, you know, and you know, give me the opportunity to respond. And yeah, if you like it, share it. Okay, love you guys. Thanks so much. And one day at a time. Okay, bye-bye.